Small bookstores are booming again after nearly being wiped out. Hello guys and welcome to I Love Reading, a channel about interesting book-related subreddit topics. If you love our content, please press the like button, leave a comment and lastly, if you're new here, subscribe to our channel. Now let's get started. Glad to see this. We have a local independent bookstore in my neighborhood and it certainly seems to have a booming business. It's not large, but they have a ton of events monthly and often have authors come speak, and many are decently well-known authors. On top of that, the staff are incredibly helpful, the selection is great, and they will order what you want as well, and they have suggestion tags hanging on the shelves by certain books that I really enjoy reading every time I come in. It's not always the cheaper option, but the experience is much better than buying online or going to a larger chain store. I believe what happened was big box bookstores hurt small bookstores. Then Amazon killed the big bookstores, which gave room for small bookstores to thrive. I believe Amazon and small bookstores serve different markets. If I know exactly what I want and it's a bit obscure, I can order off of Amazon. If I just want a new book to read, I like to go to a small bookstore where the selection is curated and I can browse and read a few pages before committing to a purchase. This is prevalent in a lot of industries. I remember in grad school I had a professor talking about how you want to be really big, economies of scale, volume, etc., or really small, customer-centric, personalization. Being stuck in the middle will kill a lot of companies. The big bookstores got caught in the middle once Amazon rapidly expanded. My local bookstore bought the space next to it, busted through, and added what has become the best coffee shop in town. They even have a little stage and let local musicians come play. It's nice to grab a book, sit down with some coffee, and read a chapter or two to see if I want it, while someone strums a guitar. It's what Barnes & Noble wish they could have been. When I was a teen, I used to get all my books second-hand from markets and shops. When you're talking about £2, even the crappiest novel is a bit of fun. I still have a rifle through the used books bin at the charity shop if I'm in town. I find that I can't browse for a book online. Far too much volume there to look through and find anything, just overwhelming amounts. I have to rely on recommendations much more. Agree with this, and it's super interesting how this played out. At first, it seemed like big box retail would win out, or at least snuff out the independents before losing to online, but given the more one-stop shop approach of those places, it makes sense the convenience seekers just jump to online options, while those actually appreciating the feeling of brick and mortar prior to box stores have continued to gravitate to actual local establishments. I'm glad some local establishments were able to weather the storm and make it to this point. I know it's not likely, but I hope physical books and stores stay around forever. I love going to them and picking something out. I love everything about physical books. The smell, the texture, the cover, the blurb. I could never get into Kindles or e-readers, even though they are so handy and convenient. I hope when I'm older I have a mini library full of them. I bought a Kindle for a quick read when I'm out and about or traveling, but I vastly prefer paper at home or around town. It doesn't get better than old book smell. Physical books will always be there. There's a simplicity and universal aspect to it that will not be beaten by any amount of technology. However, we do need to change the way we present information in the digital books. The main advantage of digital books over physical books is that information can be presented in a very non-linear way by providing links to external and internal resources. The digital books should make this easier instead of the just replicating physical books. Wanted to share, as I thought you would all be as happy as I was to see this. According to the American Booksellers Association, the number of independent bookstores fell by approximately 40% between the mid-90s and 2009. They have recovered some of those closures, and this year, sales are up more than 5% over a year ago. This is just awesome, and I really hope the trend continues. The convenience of online retailers can't be ignored, but there is just something so wonderful about walking into a bookstore and getting your hands on all those books. I can smell the paper just thinking about it. I love holding the book. I'm 35 and grew up with technology and love computers, video games, gadgets and all, but I can't do e-readers. I love going in, flipping the pages, making sure I'm going to like reading it, and the author's writing style is good. I was at my local used bookstore every Saturday for a while until I ran out of bookcase. Good news, I've finished putting up my IKEA bookcases. More books. Local used bookstores are the best. I've gotten a few first editions from the 1800s and early 1900s for nothing. Not like I'm trying to become an old book dealer, but it's really neat to read a book that you know was read by someone that lived through the Civil War or World War I. I once got a signed first edition copy of a book by my favorite author for $10. It was so cheap in part because it was personalized when it was signed. Reached out to the author after I got it and found out that the person it was personalized to was Bill Kreutzmann of the Grateful Dead. My suspicion is that this is the result of Amazon. The small bookstore die-off was a result of large chain bookstores entering the market. By offering better selection at lower prices, they were able to wreck the business model of the small bookstores, and many perished. However, Amazon in turn wrecked the business model of the large chain bookstores for the same reason. What remains is a small bookstore that is less a bookstore than a third space, a place for people to gather around common interests. To some extent, this poses a problem for the small bookstore owner since they aren't truly in the business of selling books any longer. Rather, they're in the business of creating the equivalent of the local pub for book lovers. While they'll happily take your money in exchange for printed material, what they're really looking to do is establish the bookstore as part of your routine where you stop by and check up on your friends and somehow monetize that experience. In the early 90s, there was a tiny bookstore in downtown Lancaster, PA Arcadia Books. We had just moved there, and I remember thinking, before we ever went in, that it was probably one of those touristy card shops that calls itself a bookstore. But it was, bar none, the best bookstore I've ever known. There was never a time when they didn't have a copy of whatever I was looking for. Not once. It was like magic. Eventually, a Borders, which almost never had what I wanted, came to town, and Arcadia went out of business. But to this day, Arcadia is what I think of when anyone mentions independent bookstores. For me, I think of a place called Murder by the Book that was in Denver. It focused on mystery times, but also horror. I loved it. I really miss having bookstores in malls. Barnes & Noble is fine as a destination, but when you're stuck in the mall for hours waiting on your iPhone to get repaired, a bookstore would be an ideal place to wait. I mean, malls are also largely dying out. Retailers are not keeping up with consumer trends, and so consumers avoid those retailers. Pretty much all clothing stores now are selling fast fashion, and younger consumers are rejecting that more and more. Until retailers figure out how to put quality and ethics back into their products, they are going to keep losing business from younger consumers. They've learned to serve niche markets. Children's, sci-fi, etc., or have diversified their offerings: coffee, wine and cheese bar, educational toys, stationery, pet-friendly, large used sections, hosting readings and children's play groups, etc. I love the trend to offer coffee in bookshops. I don't like those clean, generic coffee shops. Sitting in a living room-like bookstore drinking coffee, reading. That's the best way to enjoy some free time. I've always wondered, what's the upside of a small bookstore as opposed to a large bookstore chain? Community. Generally more curated. Knowledgeable staff. Nostalgia. Used books, too. Local stores have a unique feel to them that large chains can't quite get right. When a local store puts well-worn armchairs gathered in a corner of the store, it's quaint and feels good, like a place you'd like to stay. When a large chain installs brand new black leather high-back armchairs strategically placed for maximum impact as per corporate, it comes across as soulless instead. It doesn't feel like a place I'd like to be. Along with what's already been said, it's helping out individual business owners who actually enjoy their work and have a love for books rather than a multi-million-pound or dollar chain that's just lining some fat cat's pocket. Always shop local if you can. Your money is worth more, and then some, to the family of 5 down the road who owns their own bookshop compared to the wanker who sails his yacht hosting elaborate parties. Community. Local bookstores will always have more loyalty and more of a sense of community due to the very nature of ownership and who they are beholden to. Most corporate branches are just outlets reporting to the big guys a few states away. Better for the local economy. Small businesses tend to put more money back into the community, whereas big businesses usually have enough money to pass the threshold necessary to start easily evading taxes. There's a reason Amazon paid less money than you. Yes, you as an individual, on income taxes last year. There's a uniqueness to small bookstores that is lost with the big box stores and their need for conformity, part of which is the chance to find unique books otherwise not available or not highlighted due to the complex algorithms that determine which relatively small amount of books the big stores showcase at every branch. Well, at our local one, the shelving is overfull and all askew. Things are attempted to be kept in order, but it's hard to say if they are or not because stuff is shoved in double tall or randomly just stacked as the shelf as space allows. The place is a bit like a maze, any walkway is slim, and most of them wind around a corner or two, then dead end. There is a cat that lives there. The clerk knits, and when you are ready to pay she will tell you to wait while she finishes her row or counts stitches. To many, this sounds like a bookstore of their dreams. Reality is though, it's not the safest place to be, and hope you're not allergic to cats, and the tinderbox manager is not really there to help you. For me, I never shop at Chapters or Indigo or any big chain and always shop at indie bookstores. The reason is simple but multifaceted. First, big chain stores charge ridiculous prices for books. I'm very poor and I don't want to spend $30 on a hardcover book. Or even $10 on a softcover I will read in a couple of days. So I go to the indie, second-hand store. They have multiple advantages. Price? Like $5 to $7 depending on the book. Some even cheaper like $3. Selection? They have thousands upon thousands of used books, so I can find cult classics out of print instead of being forced to buy whatever new James Patterson book is out. Plenty of big chain bookstores stock mainly the big hits, and I've read many of them. Atmosphere. The used bookstore is like a library and has that musty old book smell. Feels like treasure hunting rather than shopping with the stocked shelves floor to ceiling. Staff. The owner saw I bought Rebecca and asked if I liked it and if I had read anything else by the author, Daphne du Maurier. I read his recommendations and she's one of my favorite authors now. I had no expectation for recommendations or even that the owner would remember me or what I bought, but he did and it was really special. They also accept trade-ins. I'm not reading many books twice, and if they don't want to buy what you drop off, they'll donate it or recycle the materials into reusable pulp. A note about Amazon. They're not really in the business of books. Books draw more people into their site where they end up buying other products that Amazon actually earns a profit on. This is why a book on Amazon is always going to be cheaper than the same book at your local bookstore, selling at list price. Amazon can afford to not make a profit. Your local bookstore cannot. As such, Amazon has managed to become the source of 40% plus of all publishers, Big Five and the little guys, revenue. Publishers can't afford to not work with them. More people buying books on Amazon, which equals to more local mom and pop bookstores closing, which equals to the more power Amazon wields over publishing companies. The more power Amazon wields over publishing companies, the more they can get away with. Example? Claiming massive shortages, even though companies can provide tracking proof that the books arrived, demanding even higher discounts, etc. Please support your local bookstores. That extra $3 you're spending is so worth it. Source: Work in Publishing. I am so happy to see this. Bookstores have long been my escape from an often stressful world. Bookstores are fantastic contributions to a community. Yep, bookstores and libraries were my escapes as well. What a relief to walk in and soak up the peaceful atmosphere. When you come into a store like this and you don't know what you want and you browse these shelves, you're gonna find books that you didn't know existed. If you are engaged in your community, curating your content, having people working at the store that are knowledgeable and passionate about books, there absolutely is a formula for success. Bingo. I don't get that discovery online that I get when going into a store. I also get good recommendations and things like talks from authors. My local bookstore in San Diego just doubled in size recently in what is presumably a pricey area rent-wise. It's the textbook definition of small bookstore with passionate employees and eclectic book selection. It feels good to see an example of this boom happening locally. There you have it. Why small bookstores were nearly wiped out and are booming again. As an appreciation for watching this video till the end, click the link in the description below, sign up, and choose 2 books of your liking from a collection of more than 150,000 audiobooks. Completely for free. Thank you for watching till the end. If you loved the video, don't forget to press the like button and also subscribe to I Love Reading. See you on the next video.